I remember the smell before I remember anything else. Damp stone, mold, ash. The convent was dead, but it still breathed. I stepped off the dirt road that split from US Route 1 and followed a trail of broken bricks into the woods. The trees closed in like ribs, their shadows knifed across my flashlight beam. At the end of the path, the ruins of Our Lady of the Ashes convent rose up like a corpse half buried. The bell tower had collapsed decades ago. The bronze bell lay sideways in the weeds, rust eating its ribs. The stained glass was shattered, only jagged mouths left in the stone frames. A black cross leaned crooked against the wall, its edges scorched. I had taken a job I should not have taken. Night watchman. Easy money, they said. Keep vandals away. Sit in the dark and wait until dawn. My name is Charles, and I was stupid enough to believe it. The first night I carried nothing but a thermos of coffee, a flashlight, and a pack of cigarettes. No gun, no radio, just silence. Inside the chapel, the pews were split. The altar cloth was rotted lace. A broken statue of the Virgin lay face down in dust. When I stepped across the floor, the sound echoed too long, as if the air itself repeated it back to me. Then I heard it, a faint rattle, sharp and delicate, like beads striking stone. I froze. It was not the wind, not an animal. It was the unmistakable sound of a rosary falling bead by bead across the floor. I told myself it was nothing. My brain reached for reason. Maybe a rat dragged something. Maybe a loose nail rolled across stone. But the sound came again, closer this time, and the air grew colder, pulling tight around my throat. I stepped back toward the door. My light shook across the wall. That was when I saw the writing. 3 black lines smeared across the plaster, drawn by burned fingers, or coal, or something worse. Words scrawled in a shaky hand. Do not look at her. Kneel when you hear the beads. Leave before the bell at 3. The letters pulsed in the beam as if still alive. I could feel sweat crawl down my back. I turned, ready to leave. Then I saw movement in the glass, a shadow sliding past a jagged window frame, the shape of a woman in long robes, gliding soundless. The edge of her veil brushed the broken stone and vanished. I stepped outside, gasping for air. My hands shook. The weeds hissed in the wind, but the convent stayed silent, as if waiting. That was when I remembered what Susan, a woman from town, had said when she first heard where I was working. She had gripped my arm hard enough to leave marks. Do not stay past midnight. She still walks there. I had laughed then. I was not laughing now. The night dragged its claws through the forest. Hours felt like days. My flashlight dimmed. My coffee was gone. I tried to stay calm, tried to convince myself I was just babysitting ruins. But my mind kept circling those rules. Do not look at her. Kneel when you hear the beads. Leave before the bell at 3. Why rules? Who wrote them? Who survived long enough to carve them into the wall? I sat on the crumbled steps of the chapel, chain smoking, waiting for dawn. The forest breathed heavy. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt a presence pressing closer, as if unseen eyes leaned inches from my face. Then came the footsteps. Not one pair, many, bare feet slapping stone, echoing through the nave behind me. I turned. The chapel was empty, but the sound swarmed like water filling the air. I whispered my own name to remind myself I was still real. Charles, Charles, Charles. The sound stopped. Silence pressed in so heavy I thought my eardrums would crack. Then the rosary fell again, this time right at my feet. Beads black as coal rolled across the stone. The cross at the end dragged a trail of ash. I stared down. My body would not obey. I knew the rule. Kneel when you hear the beads. Kneel or break. But I just stood, frozen, my throat locked. The beads stopped rolling. And then, from the broken doorway, a figure stepped halfway into the light. A woman in a black habit, veil hanging heavy, face shadowed. Her presence warped the air, bending the silence around her. She did not walk. She drifted. The veil lifted just enough to show the hollow of her face. No eyes, no mouth, just absence. My knees buckled. I dropped without meaning to. My forehead almost touched the stone. The convent groaned, stone cracking under some invisible weight, and in the stillness, a voice brushed across my skull, not spoken, burned straight into me. Keep the law. My body shook like it was not mine. My hands pressed together without command. The rosary wrapped around my wrist, cold as iron. And then the figure was gone. Only the bell lay rusting in the weeds. Only the forest whispered. But the rules remained. And I knew, even in the first hour of my first night, that I was already too late. The night pressed heavier after she vanished. The air did not relax. It thickened. I sat on the steps outside the chapel, shaking, trying to convince myself I had imagined it. My watch read 1 a.m. 2 more hours to endure. 2 more hours before that cursed bell. The forest was alive. Branches clicked. The weeds hissed. The sound of the river somewhere beyond the trees grew louder, though I knew the Patapsco was miles away. I lit another cigarette. My hands trembled too much to keep the flame steady. The lighter clicked 3 times before it caught. The smoke tasted like iron. I thought of Ryan. He had worked one night here, then quit. Left me a crumpled note, no signature, shoved under the office door. The paper had 3 words scrawled in graphite. I saw her. He never came back. I wondered if he had seen the same hollow face I had, or worse. The cigarette ash burned down to my fingers before I realized I was not alone. There was breathing behind me. Slow, steady. The sound of lungs dragging air through water. I turned. Nothing. The chapel was dark, but in the cracked doorway, a shimmer rippled. As if heat rose from cold stone. The rosary on my wrist tightened. It pulled like invisible hands were dragging me back inside. I whispered to the dark. "Stop," the rosary answered by digging deeper, beads grinding into skin. The chapel swallowed me again. Inside, the shadows had grown thicker, as if they had weight. The broken statue of the Virgin was standing upright now, though I had left it face down. Her face was gone, erased. Her outstretched arms pointed toward the apse, where the altar cracked under something too heavy to see. The air stank of incense, burned long ago, sweet, rotting, choking, and then the beads fell again. This time, the sound was not faint. It was violent, hundreds of beads striking the stone all at once, rattling like hail. I dropped to my knees. My body obeyed the rule before my mind did. The sound circled me. The air spun. A presence brushed my neck, cold as open graves. Whispers rose around me. Dozens of voices, female. Prayers spoken backward, Latin turned inside out. The rules. I thought only of the rules. Do not look at her. Kneel when you hear the beads. Leave before the bell. I pressed my forehead to the cracked floor and stayed there, breath shallow, trying not to break. The whispers grew louder, wrapping tight around my skull, a choir of dead tongues. Then silence. I lifted my head an inch. The chapel was empty. The beads lay scattered in a circle around me, black and smoking. On the altar lay a book. I knew it had not been there before. The leather was cracked, edges burned. A ribbon of ash marked the center. I stood, weak, drawn to it. The cover bore no title, but inside, scrawled handwriting filled the pages. It was the journal of Father Anthony. She was called Sister Mary. She prayed more than the others. She punished herself more than the others. She wore black when the rest wore white. The Mother Superior forbade her, but she refused. When the plague came, she would not leave the dying. She stayed among them until her flesh rotted. She rose again when the bell tolled. I tried to drive her out. I failed. I left rules for the living, but no one listens. The last page was torn. Only 3 words remained at the bottom. Keep the law. The book slipped from my hands. The rosary pulled tighter, cutting off blood. My fingers turned white. I staggered toward the door, but the weeds outside were gone. The forest itself had shifted. Where trees had been, now there were rows of stone crosses, crooked and sinking into black soil, a graveyard spreading endlessly. The convent had moved me, or it had moved itself. The air vibrated with the sound of metal straining. The bell. Not 3 yet, not even close, but the bell moaned as if testing its voice. The sound crawled up my spine, claws on bone. I ran through the graves. Every stone bore the same name, Mary. The forest closed again, choking me in shadows. My flashlight flickered, then died. In the pitch dark, I heard the veil brush against my ear, and the voice whispered once more, inside my skull, clear as fire. 2 hours left. The graveyard dissolved around me, as if it had only been painted on the dark. I stumbled, gasping, and the forest snapped back into place, trees, weeds. The outline of the chapel glowing faintly with ash light. But the ground under me still bore crosses, small wooden ones, crude and splintered. They jutted from the dirt at twisted angles. Each one carried the same word, carved deep. Mary. The wind hissed, the crosses creaked. I staggered back to the chapel steps, dizzy. My chest rattled with every breath. My wrist burned where the rosary cut deep. The beads no longer looked black. They looked wet, as if dipped in oil. My watch read 1:45. The chapel door was half closed now. I knew I had left it wide open. Shadows moved across the cracks, though no one could be inside. I stepped in. The pews had shifted. They all faced backward now, away from the altar, as if the dead congregation had turned to watch the door. Dust swirled through the flashlight beam. Something wet dripped from above. I looked up. A rosary hung from the rafters, swaying. Not one, but dozens. Beads clicking, ropes twisting, crosses at the ends, sharpened, dripping with dark liquid that fell onto the floor. The smell of iron filled my throat. My knees gave way, reflex. My forehead almost touched the stone. The sound grew deafening. Every rosary clashed against another, storming like rain. The chapel groaned. And then the voice whispered again, brushing the inside of my skull. Do not look. I shut my eyes. Footsteps slithered across the stone, bare, soft, dozens at once, a tide of movement circling me. Something leaned close to my ear. The air chilled to ice. The whisper this time was not hers, it was many, a choir of broken throats. Look! My eyelids twitched. Sweat stung my face. The beads smashed louder. The voices pressed harder. Look! 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 My body betrayed me. My eyes snapped open. She was there. Sister Mary stood inches away. Her veil brushed my cheek. Her face was not a face. A hollow pit stretched from brow to chin, blacker than the dark, and inside that hollow things moved, crawling, shifting, pressing forward like hands trapped behind glass. My scream strangled in my throat. The rosary on my wrist split. Beads scattered, skittering across the stone. They melted into ash where they landed. Her veil lifted higher. For a moment, teeth shone in the hollow. Hundreds, too many. Then the chapel lights flared. No electricity existed here, but every broken bulb burst into white fire. The pews snapped upright. The statue of the Virgin on the altar wept streams of black water down her faceless head. The book of Father Anthony lay open again, though I had dropped it before. The page now bore fresh ink, written in strokes that bled into the paper. He looked at her. My vision blurred. My ears rang. The chapel heaved as if it were alive, and then it all stopped. The beads were still, the whispers gone. Sister Mary no longer stood before me. I was alone, but the page in the book remained, words still wet. He looked at her. He belongs to her. I slammed the book shut. My hands shook. The cover left soot on my palms. My watch read 2:20. 40 minutes until the bell. The forest outside screamed with wind. The trees bent low, branches clawing the chapel walls. I tried the main door. It would not move. My flashlight beam slid across the floor. More writing now covered the plaster, fresh, black, wet as if carved seconds ago. Words spreading like veins across stone. Not rules, a verdict. He already failed. The air turned ice cold. My breath fogged white. From deep within the chapel, beyond the altar, the bell groaned once more, louder this time, though I knew it was not yet 3. Every instinct screamed to run, but I had nowhere left to go. The sound of the bell lingered even after it stopped, a tremor that clung to the walls, to my ribs, to the marrow in my bones. 2:25. The chapel no longer felt empty. The air pressed from all directions, crowding me in, as if the space had filled with bodies I could not see. My light wavered. The beam crawled across the pews, over broken wood, over stone. Then it caught movement. Ryan. He stood at the far end of the aisle, his uniform still on, shirt stained dark. His face sagged, pale and heavy, eyes dull as wax. "Ryan?" I whispered, voice breaking. He lifted his head. His jaw worked. Then he opened his mouth. A rosary spilled out. Beads clattered across the floor, rolling toward me like insects. I stumbled back. His lips stretched wider than human. More rosaries poured out, endless, choking him, sliding down his chest, coiling around his arms. His body shook under the weight until it dropped to its knees. The chapel filled with the sound, hundreds of beads raining on stone. My legs buckled. I collapsed beside the door, palms over my ears. The rosaries reached me, wrapping my ankles, dragging me forward across the cracked floor. I clawed at the stone, nails tearing. My light spun, throwing jagged shadows against the walls. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw dozens of faces pressed to the plaster, mouths wide in silent song. The pull stopped just before the altar. Ryan was gone. Only a heap of beads lay where he'd knelt, smoking faintly, cross-charred black. 2:30. The air shifted. From behind the altar, something stirred, heavy fabric scraping stone. A low hum rose, deep as thunder, but threaded with words I could not understand. The pews turned again. This time they faced me, rows of eyeless watchers. I pressed my back to the wall, breath shallow, heart rattling. The hum grew louder, crawling under my skin. It became a chant, not one voice, but many. Female, layered, grinding like broken glass. The words twisted Latin, wrong, reversed. The altar cracked. A hand reached over it, pale, thin, fingers long and jointed like bones strung with wire. Sister Mary rose, her veil dragged behind her, a river of black. She did not walk. She climbed the air, pulled up by something unseen, until her head scraped the rafters. Rosaries swayed around her, their crosses clicking in rhythm with her movements. Her hollow face turned toward me. The pit inside writhed with shifting shapes. I turned away, but the air itself forced my chin back, as if invisible hands gripped my jaw. The whisper came again, not inside my skull this time. Out loud! The sound rolled through the chapel, through the cracks in the walls, out into the forest. Bell soon. The clock in my pocket jumped forward. I swore I saw the hands move, dragging time toward the hour. 2:35. I ran for the side door. The wood splintered under my shoulder, but it did not open. It melted instead, the grain turning soft, dripping like tar. I kicked until my boots sank into it. It swallowed leather, swallowed skin. Burning cold ate into my leg. I screamed and ripped free, flesh tearing where the tar clung. I fell onto the floor, blood smeared across stone. The chant rose, louder, closer. The rafters groaned. Every rosary snapped loose at once, falling in a storm, striking my shoulders, my back, my head, each impact a hammer, each bead left burns in my skin. I crawled, coughing blood, toward the front steps. The door gaped there, open now, black forest beyond. But standing in the frame was Susan. Her eyes were wet, wild, mouth trembling. "Leave," she whispered. "Leave before—" Her voice cut. Her throat collapsed inward as if squeezed by invisible fingers. She dropped, body twitching, mouth still open in a silent scream. Rosaries slid across the floor and coiled around her limbs, dragging her inside, deeper, until she was gone. The door slammed shut. 2:45. My body shook so hard my teeth cracked together. Blood leaked from my ears. The bell groaned again, longer, stronger. Not yet 3, but close enough that the sound began to peel the chapel apart. Stone rained from the ceiling. Dust blinded me. The floor split, opening to blackness that breathed heat. From the pit below came more voices, hundreds, thousands, all female, all singing the same broken hymn. I clung to a pew as the floor tilted. My watch ticked louder than my heart. 2:50, 10 minutes left. And Sister Mary hovered over the pit, arms wide, veil whipping in the unseen wind, her hollow face yawning open wider and wider until it threatened to swallow the chapel whole. Stone cracked. Dust rained down in choking clouds. My watch glowed in the dark. 2:55, 5 minutes. I staggered through the nave, clutching my wrist, blood streaking my sleeve. The floor buckled with each step, rising and sinking like a lung. The air pulsed with the sound of straining metal. The bell waiting, hungry. I tried the door again. The handle burned my palm. When I pulled back, skin peeled. The walls bled words in black streaks, letters sliding down like tar. I could not read them. They changed shape whenever I blinked. A voice followed me, whispering close, though no mouth moved. "Stay. Witness." The pews closed in, pushing me forward to the altar. They dragged like teeth-grinding stone. 2:57. The book of Father Anthony was on the steps now, pages flapping, though there was no wind. I wanted to kick it away, but my body bent and picked it up without command. The words crawled across the page, written as I watched. The bell marks those who belong to her. The page blackened, ash scattered from the spine. My head rang, my vision spun. I dropped the book and fell to my knees. The rosaries rattled again. This time, they did not fall from rafters. They erupted from the cracks in the floor, bursting upward, coiling around me. Beads jammed into my mouth, choking me. Crosses pressed against my eyes until I saw stars. I tore them free, gagging, blood pouring from torn lips. 2:58. The sound of the bell built, not struck yet, but rising from the ground, like something crawling toward the surface. The chapel air split with heat. My lungs burned with every breath. From the pit below, Sister Mary rose again. Her veil whipped around her like storm clouds. Her hollow face had widened, stretched, gaping into an endless tunnel filled with moving shapes. The shapes pushed against the edges, hands, fingers, faces, hundreds of them pressing forward, trying to claw free. Her voice scraped against the walls. The bell calls. 2:59. The rafters trembled. The bronze bell outside groaned, louder, deeper, though I knew it no longer hung in the tower. It should not exist, but the sound filled the sky. I pressed my hands over my ears. It did not matter. The sound was inside me now, shaking my bones. The chapel tilted again. The pews slid, smashing into the walls. The altar cracked down the middle. My watch ticked once more. The second hand froze. 3 o'clock. The bell struck. The sound ripped the world in half. Stone shattered. Glass exploded. My skull felt as if it cracked open, brain boiling. My eyes burned white. The bell did not stop. It tolled again and again. Each strike pulled me higher. weightless, dragged toward the rafters, toward the swaying storm of rosaries. Bodies rose with me. Shadows peeled from the walls shaped like nuns, dozens, hundreds, their habits whipping in the wind of the sound. Their eyeless faces tilted upward, mouths opening wider than jaws should. They sang. The chant was not in words. It was the sound of graves opening, of nails tearing wood, of soil collapsing. I thrashed against the pull. My fingernails ripped off on the stone as I clawed for something to hold. The bell tolled again. My body slammed against the ceiling. Dust filled my lungs. Below me, the pit yawned wider, spilling black fire. The pews tumbled into it like toys. Sister Mary rose taller, veil stretching across the chapel like wings. Her hollow face aimed at me, drawing me in. The rosary still clung to my wrist. The beads glowed red now, burning into my skin, fusing bone and flesh. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the bell. The final toll split the night, and everything went dark. Silence. No bell, no chants, no fire. I opened my eyes to daylight. For a second I thought it was morning. The forest shimmered pale beyond the chapel doorway. Sunlight spilled through the broken glass. I lay on the cracked floor, every muscle screaming. Blood dried black across my hands. My watch read 7 o'clock. Too late. Too impossible. I dragged myself upright. My throat scraped raw. My ears still rang with phantom echoes. The chapel looked different. The pews were whole again, polished wood lined in perfect rows. The altar gleamed white. Fresh candles burned with thin golden flames. It was not ruin. It was untouched. But the air felt wrong. Heavy, stale, pressed with the weight of centuries. I stepped down the aisle. My boots left no sound. The floor was too clean. The dust, the cracks, the mold, gone. Only silence. At the front, a Bible lay open on the altar. Its pages were blank. The smell of incense curled thick in the air. Movement stirred in the corner. I turned. Susan sat in the front pew, her hair neat, her dress white, hands folded in her lap, her eyes glassy, her lips parted in a faint smile. Susan, my voice cracked. She did not move. I stepped closer. Her body was stiff, waxen. Her chest did not rise. When I touched her shoulder, her head turned too far, bones snapping without sound. Her empty eyes locked on mine. Her mouth moved, whispering without breath. "You did not leave." I staggered back. The chapel lights flickered. Daylight vanished, replaced by ash glow seeping through the windows. The wood cracked. The pews rotted before my eyes, splitting and collapsing. The altar cloth blackened, curling into smoke. I had not escaped. I was somewhere else. Another layer, another version. The Bible on the altar filled with words. Black script crawled across the blank pages. The bell has marked him. He walks in her house now. The page turned on its own. Time here does not move. He belongs until it rings again. The candles burst into streams of soot. Shadows writhed up the walls, thickening, taking shape. Figures filled the pews. Dozens of nuns, habits black as smoke, faces empty pits. Their bodies sat rigid, heads bowed, hands gripping rosaries that pulsed like veins. The sound of beads rattling filled the silence. I ran for the door. It was open. The forest outside glowed gray. Not green, not alive. The trees stood twisted, bark ashen, leaves brittle like paper. The road to US 1 was gone. Only more crosses marked the ground, stretching in rows between the trees. Each one bore my name. Charles. 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 I choked on bile. The convent door slammed behind me. The bell groaned again, far away but inside me too, dragging time forward though my watch hands did not move. I dropped to my knees, clawing at the dirt, trying to dig into anything real. My nails scraped stone beneath the soil, headstones, countless. The forest pulsed. A black wind tore through, carrying whispers. She keeps the law. She keeps the law. She keeps the law. I turned, and she was there. Sister Mary stood at the edge of the tree line, veil dragging through ash. Her hollow face tilted, wide and waiting. I could not breathe. I stumbled back into the chapel, slamming the door shut, pressing my back against it. Inside, the nuns in the pews lifted their heads in unison. No eyes, no mouths, just the pits. Their rosaries clicked in rhythm, pulling tighter, faster, until the sound was one endless grinding chain. The book on the altar flipped again. He cannot leave. He's already inside. My watch ticked once, then stopped again. The chapel did not breathe. The candles no longer flickered. Even the shadows froze. I raised my watch to my face. The hands were stuck at 7 o'clock, unmoving. I shook it until my wrist bled where the rosary burned into me. Still frozen. Time had stopped. But the air told a different story. Every inhale scraped like hours. Every blink dragged like days. I staggered down the aisle, eyes darting over the rows of black-clad figures. Their heads bowed again, as if asleep. Their rosaries still pulsed faintly, red veins glowing. The book on the altar had closed itself. Ash smoked from the spine. I whispered to the silence, "Am I dead?" The walls answered with creaks. I pushed open the side door. The forest outside lay pale and twisted. Crosses tilted in endless rows. Something moved between them. I stepped closer. It was me. My own body stumbling between graves, flashlight dangling, eyes wide with terror. My lips moved, whispering words I could not hear. Another me stepped from behind a tree, running, bleeding from the wrists. He fell, knees cracking, crawling toward nothing. A third version stood in the clearing, staring up at the sky with his mouth stretched open, as if screaming a sound swallowed by the air. All of them were me. I gasped and backed into the chapel. My head struck the doorframe. Blood slicked my hairline. Inside, the pews shifted again. Every figure lifted their heads in unison. Not nuns. Not shadows. Not strangers. They were me. Dozens of Charles sat in black habits, faces hollow, rosaries burning red in their hands. Each one turned toward me with the same empty stare. My stomach dropped. The chant began again, low, grinding, overlapping. My own voice multiplied, speaking in reverse. I clutched my ears, but the sound drilled inside anyway. I stumbled forward. The book on the altar opened. Pages turned so fast the words blurred. Then they stopped. A single line burned across the paper. He's already repeating. My breath stuttered. The chapel darkened further. Only the rosaries glowed now, swinging in rhythm, their light painting the walls with lines of fire. I saw myself in those flames too. Endless versions, some kneeling, some hanged from rafters, some clawing the stone until only bone remained. My knees buckled. I tried to scream, but only ash spilled from my mouth. The nearest figure, another Charles in black, stepped down the aisle. His rosary dragged sparks across the floor. His hollow face leaned close to mine. Inside the pit where his features should have been, I saw more of me, smaller, trapped, screaming in silence. He lifted a hand. Bones stretched too long. His fingers pressed against my chest. My heart stopped. The chapel rang with silence. When I opened my eyes, I was outside again. Night. Not morning. Not ashglow. Night. The convent lay in ruins, as it had on my first step through the trees. The bell still rusted in weeds. The walls still cracked. I blinked. My flashlight buzzed weak. My thermos lay tipped at my feet. For 1 second, relief clawed through me. Maybe it had been a dream, a vision, a trick of exhaustion. Then I saw him, another me, standing in the doorway. His eyes hollow, his lips moving. He mouthed words I knew without hearing. Keep the law. My watch ticked once, then stopped again, and the bell began to stir beneath the earth. The bell moved again, slow, heavy, though no tower stood above. The ground beneath the chapel trembled. I backed away, hands pressed to my skull, my pulse hammered against bone, screaming to escape. The door gaped open, the forest stretched pale and endless. Shapes drifted between the crosses, all of them were me. One, Charles, crawled with broken legs, dragging himself through ash. Another clutched his own throat, tearing it open, lips mouthing prayers without sound. Dozens staggered, knelt, screamed, clawed, each trapped in the same circle of fear. Their movements did not match mine. They were earlier, later, different hours of the same nightmare. I whispered to the dark. How many times? The forest answered with more footsteps. Rows of me emerged from the tree line. Eyes, black pits, wrists bound by glowing rosaries. They moved in rhythm, heads jerking at the same angle, mouths opening on the same silent word. Stay. I stumbled backward into the chapel. Inside, the pews no longer held shadows. They held me. Every seat filled with my face, each one hollow, each one cracked. Dozens, hundreds. My own voice rose from their mouths, layered, reversed, choking the air. The altar split again. The book waited open, pages blank until the ink bled through in jagged strokes. Every strike of the bell pulls another Charles inside. She keeps them all. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. I gripped the pews for balance, but the wood dissolved into ash under my hands. A figure stepped from the center aisle. Me, but older. Gray streaks in his beard, skin torn, eyes wide and broken. He staggered toward me, holding his chest, blood soaking his shirt. He whispered, voice ragged, desperate, "Do not let it toll again." Before I could answer, chains of beads burst from his mouth, dragging him backward, snapping his body into the pit yawning under the altar. I screamed. The bell groaned louder. The walls bent inward. The rafters shrieked. I ran for the side door. Outside again, the crosses multiplied as I watched. New ones cracked from the dirt, crooked, uneven, each carved with my name. Charles. 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 I tripped over one. The ground shifted. Beneath the soil, hands clawed upward, my own hands, dozens of them, skin split, fingernails gone. They seized my ankles, pulling me down. I tore free, flesh ripping, blood slicking the wood. I staggered toward the bell lying rusted in weeds. It was no longer rust. It gleamed bronze, polished, alive. The clapper swayed on its own, ready. I grabbed it. My hands blistered on contact. Heat seared through bone. I pulled, trying to stop it from swinging, but the bell wanted to ring. Behind me, the forest filled with rows of me. Their mouths stretched wide, screaming without sound. Their bodies lurched closer, step by step, dragged forward with each groan of metal. The sky split. No stars, no moon, only black. The bell swayed harder. I clung to it, teeth clenched, lungs tearing, every muscle burning. The book of Father Anthony slid across the dirt, pages flapping open to new words. No one stops it, not even him. The ground quaked, my knees buckled, the bell tore from my grip and swung free. The toll shook the forest, crosses split in half, every version of me screamed together, one endless chorus of my own voice. I dropped to the dirt, ears bleeding, eyes white, and in the pit of the sound, Sister Mary rose once more. Her veil spread wide, black wings blotting what little light remained. Her hollow face opened, stretching larger, pulling in the air, the trees, the crosses, the versions of me. All of them slid toward her, dragged like dust into a vacuum. My body moved too. I clawed at the ground until nails snapped, until skin tore to bone. It did not matter. The pull grew stronger. I was already gone. The ground split open. The forest folded into ash. Every version of me was dragged screaming into the dark. I clawed the dirt until my fingers snapped, bone splitting. My body slid backward, inch by inch, toward the pit yawning beneath the chapel. The bell tolled again. The sound ripped through me, splitting skin, cracking teeth. I fell. Stone swallowed me whole. I landed in the chapel, though it was not the chapel anymore. The walls stretched miles high, a cathedral without end. The pews were mountains of ash, and every seat was filled with me. Thousands of Charles, hollow-eyed, whispering in rhythm, rosaries burning red across their wrists, their voices merged into one, a chant that rattled my skull. He belongs. He belongs. He belongs. I staggered forward, knees buckling. The ground was not stone anymore. It was rosaries, beads rolling beneath my boots, cracking, cutting into skin. The altar loomed ahead. Black flame poured from its cracks. The book floated above it, pages whipping faster than I could see. And then she rose. Sister Mary. No longer human, no longer nun. She towered above the cathedral, veil stretching wider than wings, face hollow as a sky without stars. Inside that void, shapes writhed, arms, teeth, eyes, countless versions of me clawing against the dark. Her voice broke the air like glass. Kneel. My legs folded without command. My knees hit the rosary floor. The beads sliced deep, blood streaming down my shins. I tried to fight. My body shook with rage, with terror. But her hand stretched out, long fingers black as bone, pressing the crown of my head. Cold fire seared into me. Images slammed into my skull. I saw myself at every hour of every night, in every ruin, in every version of this place. I saw the bell ringing again and again, each strike birthing another me, another sacrifice, another failure. There was no end. Her hollow face lowered until it filled my vision. The pit inside yawned wider, stretching into eternity, pulling me toward it. I saw thousands of Charles trapped within her, screaming silently, faces pressed to the black glass of her flesh. The rosary on my wrist burned white. The beads fused into skin, burrowing deeper until my bones cracked to hold them. She whispered, voice threading through every nerve in my body. You will keep the law. The chant from the pews grew louder, endless, unbroken. My own voice multiplied 1,000 times, echoing back at me. You will keep the law. You will keep the law. My mouth moved, though I tried to resist. My lips formed the words, I will keep the law. Her hand pressed harder, my skull bent, my eyes filled with black. The cathedral roared with fire. The bell tolled once more, inside my chest this time, ribs rattling, heart snapping against bone. Every Charles screamed at once. The sound tore the world apart, and I was no longer one of them. I was all of them. The rosaries coiled across my arms, chest, throat, binding me in burning chains. The habit of ash formed over my body, heavy, suffocating. My breath froze in my lungs. Her whisper sank deeper. You are mine. The world shattered, and I knelt in silence before Sister Mary, hollow, infinite, gone, light, blinding. I gasped awake on cold stone. The air was clean. The chapel was ruin again, broken glass, fallen beams, weeds pushing through cracks. The bell lay rusting sideways in the grass. Morning sun bled through the trees. Birds called from somewhere distant. I pushed myself up, chest raw, skin carved with burns. My throat ached like I had swallowed fire. For one moment, I believed I was free. The forest looked alive again. Green leaves, damp earth, the trail back to the road just beyond the trees. US 1 waited. The world still existed. I staggered outside. My boots dragged through weeds. My lungs rattled, but they filled with air that tasted real. I turned in a circle, dizzy. The crosses were gone. No more graves bearing my name. I laughed, broken, hollow, but real. Then I saw my wrist. The rosary was still there, not black now, not glowing, but fused into my skin. The beads had sunk deep, half buried in flesh. Dried blood caked around them. The cross dangled, sharp, red-stained. I clawed at it, ripping skin, tearing until my nails split. It did not come off. It pulsed once faintly like a second heartbeat. The laughter died in my throat. I stumbled toward the dirt road. My body shook with every step, but I made it out of the trees. Cars hummed faintly beyond the bend. The world moved. Time moved. But when I checked my watch, the hands had not shifted. Still frozen. 7 o'clock, always 7. I collapsed on the roadside, breathing hard, watching the sunlight crawl across the asphalt. Behind me, the bell groaned. Not loud, just enough to tell me it was not over. I pressed my hand to the rosary, feeling it burn faint against my skin. I remembered Susan's warning. Do not stay past midnight. She still walks there. I thought of Ryan's note. I saw her, and Father Anthony's final words, keep the law. My voice cracked as I whispered to the empty air. I do. Wind hissed through the trees. Leaves whispered like beads sliding through fingers. I closed my eyes, praying the sound would fade. But when I opened them, another figure stood on the opposite side of the road. Me. He stared with hollow eyes, wrist bleeding around a black rosary. His mouth moved, mouthing words I could not hear. The traffic rolled past him without slowing. Drivers blind, cars slipping through his body as if he were smoke. And then he was gone. The silence pressed in again. I looked at my hand, at the rosary, at the blood. If you find Our Lady of the Ashes, remember what I tell you. Do not look. Do not hesitate. Do not wait for the bell, because once you hear it, it is already too late, and I will be waiting for you.